Today is Tuesday, October 28th, 2025, and the board meeting is now called to order. It is currently 6 o'clock p.m. Director Shandagari is absent, and Superintendent Castaneda is absent, and Director Hudson is joining us online. Tonight, Deputy Superintendent Cobb will be covering in Superintendent Castaneda's absence. Welcome. At this time, we will have the land acknowledgement by First Vice Chair Harnish.
Thank you. We are gathered today on the land of the Kalapuya, who are represented by the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indian. The relationship between the Kalapuya people and this land continues unbroken to this day, and we offer gratitude for the land and for the generations present and past who have stewarded the land since time immemorial. We respectfully acknowledge and honor past, present, and future Native American and Indigenous students and staff of Salem-Keizer Public Schools. We invite you to join us in honoring these ancestral grounds and celebrating the resilience and strength of all Native American and Indigenous people.
Thank you. Will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Superintendent Cobb, Assistant Superintendent Cobb, are there any modifications to the agenda?
No modifications to the agenda.
Thank you. I will turn this portion of the agenda over to Deputy Superintendent Cobb.
Thank you, Chair Richardson, board members, and student advisors. We are very excited today to tell you about one of our important board goals. Today we'll be presenting about our third grade reading outcomes, literacy outcomes. And to do that work, I have two partners that will join us and will be presenting with me. Dr. Kevin Walker, who is one of our elementary directors, and then Eric Jesperson, who is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction for pre-K-12 for the whole system in our district. So I'm going to invite them to come to the table, and I'll get us started. I think also Superintendent Castaneda will be joining us online or will be watching after. So we'll be excited to get her feedback too on the presentation. To get us started, again, this is one of our policy reports that are really the work that guide what we do in schools. And today we'll be talking about the outcomes for literacy in 2024, 2025. And most importantly, we're gonna tell you what we're doing to respond to the data that we are getting from the state and also our internal data. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'll get started with a little bit of guiding us into the numbers that we see here. This is, if you look at the slide, the red line is the target that we set for ourselves in a process with the Oregon Department of Education. This is a growth target. And the blue line is where we are at and where our students are at every year. You'll see there that the blue trajectory line was going down until this year when finally we are going in the right way. We are in an upwards trajectory. That means that we made some improvements to our outcomes for third grade. But you also notice that there's still a gap between those two lines. And so we're working really hard to make sure that we can catch up and close that gap, and then of course, get above that line because 30% is not an outcome that we want for our students in reading. Something important also is that this assessment is done once a year, is what we call a summative assessment. And this is done in third, fourth, and fifth grade at the elementary level. Also, this assessment is done in English, and for years we referred to it as the reading test. And in reality, it's not a reading test, it's a reading and writing test. And it asks for our students to really demonstrate what they learn in with a lot of complexity. And we're gonna walk you through an example today so you can see what our 8-year-old students have to do in May of every year. This data also represents about 2,600 students who did that assessment, and not every single third grader did the assessment. About 98% of our students tested last year. If we can go to the next slide, please. In this chart, we're gonna tell you about some points of pride that we have and some small celebrations that we can start seeing in the data. A couple of important things is that not only did we move on the upwards trajectory, but we also moved students that were scoring at level, that we were testing at level 1, or their scores came back at level 1. We moved them finally out of that level 1. Level 1 is the lowest score they can get. And it tells us that they did not have a lot of the foundational skills that are critical to become successful readers. So the fact that we were able to move them from that level 1 to maybe 2 means that we are getting them ready. They're still not passing the assessment, but we are on our way to helping them get there. In this chart there, you'll see different student groups. At the very top, if we click, you'll see that the progress is 25.4. Again, not meeting the target, but a little bit of progress from last year. Then we have different groups, English learners. I know Director Guzman Ortiz, this is a question you asked of us last year. We needed to come back and share how our English learners are doing, and you'll see there that we have again, some progress. And then after that, if we click through, you'll see all of the different ethnic groups and the progress that we're making. More green, that makes us feel really proud. But I want to point out to a couple of groups. American Indian, Alaska Native students made pretty incredible growth. That's about 20 percentage points, and so we're glad to see that. Also, our Black African American students, 27.3%. And then Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander, if you remember, we talked about attendance before. And this is a group that we're doing a lot of work around attendance, and we see here some growth for literacy. And then our students who identify as white, we also see at 38.2%. And then breaking down girls and boys there, and girls are consistently outperforming males and had the highest rate of proficiency. So these are just all good and just important data points that we look into, we get curious about, and then we try to replicate the things that helped us make these groups successful. If we click a couple more times, you'll see two groups that went backwards, and these are our Asian students and multiracial students. There was a little bit of a slide on those outcomes, and so again, with all pieces of data, we get very curious, and we want to understand what happened and how we can support. We have 42 elementary schools. Out of those 42 elementary schools, 17 met or exceeded our performance target for the year. And so the system is moving slowly, but we see positive movement. If we go to the next slide, please. We wanted to highlight today, remember 17 out of our 42 schools, but we wanted to highlight these 9 schools for you and the community, because these schools, if you look at the column of school year 24 and then the school year 25, you'll see that there's an important jump there in achievement. These schools were the schools that had double-digit gains in the outcomes, and so we wanted to make sure that you and the community know about the work that is happening here. And also remember, there are other schools who still made gains. They were just not double-digit gains, and so we just highlighted these for you today. Okay, For the next report, I want to turn it into Mr. Walker, Dr. Kevin Walker, and he's going to help us understand another level of assessment. OSAS assessment, the ones we just saw and talked about, is the summative assessment that the state gives us. But we knew we needed an additional data point that is done several times a year to help us guide the instruction that happens in the classroom. So Dr. Walker is going to walk us through some of those results, and then we'll share what we're doing about them.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Richardson and Board of Directors for having us here tonight. What I want to share with you is a little bit about the assessment that we utilize across all of our elementary schools to measure literacy, kindergarten through 5th grade. That assessment is called the STAR Literacy Assessment, and we give that to we give that to kindergarten through 5th grade students. And what that assessment does differs at each of the grade bands, kindergarten through 1st grade and kindergarten through 2nd grade and 3rd grade through 5th grade. So there's an early literacy portion of that assessment, and there is a adaptive reading test portion of that assessment. And I'm gonna focus first on the early literacy portion of that assessment to kind of break down what is measured. An important note about this is the 2nd year that Salem-Keizer has been utilizing this assessment. And so we're actively learning on how to best utilize the data that comes out of this to support instructional improvement across our classrooms. In the early literacy assessment, students start in kindergarten with CBMs like letter names, letter sounds, phoneme segmenting, and what that does is build a student's ability to become a fluent reader. When they transition into 3rd grade, they're moving from learning to read to reading to learn. And so ensuring that a student has the skills in kindergarten through 2nd grade allows us to continue their progression of success throughout the later grades. And the STAR Early Literacy Assessment gives us a window into how well they're attaining those skills across kinder, 1st, and 2nd grade. I think what I will do next is call your attention to the fall 2nd grade English Early Literacy Assessment. Another important aspect that I haven't highlighted is that we give this both in our English and Spanish classrooms. And so we are actively measuring early literacy skills in both languages, depending on the students, if they're in dual language or in an English-only classroom. What I've highlighted here for you are 4 categories, and this is how a portion of that assessment comes back to us. It comes back and tells us if students are in need of urgent intervention, meaning that they are 2 or more grade levels behind. If they are in need of intervention, meaning they're a single grade level behind. If they are on watch, meaning that they're likely at grade level, but there could be some things that stand in the way of their success, or if they're at or above benchmark. And so what I've highlighted here for you is 37% in the 24-25 school year in fall of 2nd grade. And the reason why we've highlighted 2nd grade is because it's a really important indicator for how well students are achieving those foundational skills and transferring those into the 3rd through 5th grade trajectory that they're gonna have. When they move over reading to learn. So what this says to us is that 37% of our students in 2nd grade in English had the skills needed to be successful readers as they entered 3rd grade in 24-25, fall of 24-25. What we see here is a transition, and I'll get into the assessment just a little bit, but it is the same cohort of students in the 25-26 assessment for STAR reading. And so we're tracking the cohort, the same group of students who took this in fall of second grade, and then how those students entered in fall of third grade this year. And what it tells us is those students left 37% at or above benchmark, but they entered third grade this year at 43%. And that is a different assessment that they're taking. We'll dig into that here in just a minute, but an important element and aspect to highlight for you in this is that the students are growing, and they grew significantly throughout the course of their second grade year to be able to attain that level of readiness going into third grade. Doesn't mean that we don't have lots of work to do with these numbers, but it does mean that the things we are doing are bearing fruit for students entering third grade. I'll pause there for just a minute and highlight what this test looks like in third grade for students, because there is a difference here. When we are in kindergarten through second grade, we're really testing those early foundational literacy skills and finding where students' strengths are and where there's opportunities for growth, and matching them with targeted interventions if that's needed at that time, specifically regarding the development of their ability to decode words. When we get into third grade, there's a direct correlation to this assessment to the state assessment that results that we just looked at. And so it is an adaptive assessment that goes up and down depending on how a student answers particular questions. It is primarily comprehension based and is not testing those early literacy skills anymore in third grade. But the fact that it is an adaptive test allows us to know when a student has not mastered those early literacy skills, and flags for us and gives us an indicator that says that this student may need additional support even in third grade with those early literacy skills. So it gives us like an early warning sign if a student has left, and we're able to then intervene and support that student as well. I also want to point out our early literacy assessment in Spanish. We have seen significant growth there. In fall of 24-25, 52% of our second graders came in from first grade with the requisite skills needed to be successful in decoding and exercising those foundational skills in early literacy. In 25 of 26, 75% of our kids came in with those skills. So we are seeing a really significant increase in the amount of students in our Spanish classrooms gaining the skills needed to decode and show proficiency and growth in their Spanish reading skills. Okay. I'm going to move us forward to an important chart. This graph is called a Sankey graph. A Sankey. S-A-N-K-E-Y.
Oh, okay. Sanka.
We saw these same categories on watch, urgent intervention, intervention and above benchmark in that previous slide deck. But what this is a comparison of our third graders in fall of 2024 and how they progressed throughout their third grade year.
Sorry.
No. How they progressed throughout their third grade year and entered into fourth grade. So what you're looking at are the various categories and where the students entered into fourth grade. So if I was a student, and I'll just pick a student's name, like Olga. If I was little Olga and I came to school and I was in the green at or above benchmark, you can see the line of gray right there that goes to the other side of green. That means I stayed in the green the entirety of that year. If I was a student who went down from the green, then you can see the various categories of the lines in red there, that where a student changed a level. Either they maybe moved to on watch, or they moved to intervention, or they moved to urgent intervention. And you can see how the lines moved across. So this is a cohort, a group of students from fall of 2024 to fall of 2025, the same group of third grade students, this would have been the same students who took the OSAS assessment this past year. And what this graph allows us to do is see the way in which students are progressing throughout our grade levels. It gives us the ability to see mobility and ask questions and be curious around what is happening for some of the students who perhaps went down a level, what is happening for the students who went up a level, and allows us to really dig into that data quite a bit and get granular in our information. I'm going to turn it over to our curriculum director, Eric Jesperson, and he'll let you know about some of the things we're doing related to this data.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walker. Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today, Chair Richardson and board. Again, my name is Eric Jesperson. I'm excited to talk to you about Strategy 3. Thank you. Strategy 3 of our Climbing Together strategic plan. So really what I'm going to talk to you about is really connecting the dots of some of the elements that we're doing to help with our third grade literacy. As you might be aware, we're currently in the process of a extensive literacy piloting process for K through 5 for literacy, and we're about 2/3 of the way through our first round of our pilots. Approximately 70, I think it's 77 teachers in whole, but approximately 70 teachers are piloting 2 different curricula. One is HMH, and one is the publisher's McGraw-Hill. After 9 weeks of half the teachers piloting one publisher and half the teachers piloting the other one, they'll flip-flop. And in that process, those teachers that are piloting will give us some really good feedback on what works and what doesn't. That pilot process began actually with vetting products last spring, but starting the piloting in September. And we'll be done with both pilots right around February. The process is really important for another element. We're getting feedback not only from teachers that are using the products, but we're also getting feedback through our walkthroughs that we're having in the schools that are doing them. And so that really gives us a real comprehensive idea of what grade level instruction looks like using high quality instructional materials. We know that through this vetting process, we're going to have the tools that teachers need to really enable them to help raise our level of success. In terms of our next steps, we're really looking carefully at our curriculum maps. Obviously, with a new curriculum, we're going to have a new curriculum next year. We're really designing curriculum maps that, again, take a look at the new materials, really match them to the standards. And part of that is not just what to teach, but having a conversation about the grade level tasks in which the kids are experiencing. Teachers teach using the curriculum. Curriculum does not replace teachers. And so it's not just opening a book, going to page 1, and that's what the students teach, or that's not what the teachers teach. It really is finding the grade level task and making sure that the students have the cognitive lift, that they're doing the work. And in putting this together, I hope to be in front of you in March, talking about the curriculum that the committee has recommended, that I will be recommending to you that we adopt. And should you choose to authorize that, we will get started right away in terms of the training. Again, I hope to be here in March. That will give us some time in the spring to start that professional development of those new materials for all of our teachers. That professional development will continue into the summer, June, and then again in August. Not all those plans are finalized yet, but we know this is a big lift. We know it's extremely important. I can tell you that it is by far our largest curriculum adoption, and we've had a few in the last couple of years, and this is the biggest one, and we're excited about that work. As I mentioned, again, this is a comprehensive process. This is not just going out and buying books. This is really making sure that we have really good materials for our teachers and that our teachers have really good support to, again, make sure that students are doing the work. Students are doing the heavy thinking. We talk about some of our walkthroughs we look for is, just across the board, is just really making sure that the teachers are using the curriculum. But again, as I said, that students have the cognitive lift, and also that there's ownership as well, so that the students are engaged in what they're learning, and that there's dialogue, there's meaningful student-to-student academic conversations, so they're able to process and be critical thinkers and consumers. So that's initiative 1, which is high-quality instructional materials and aligned instructional frameworks. Initiative 2 is comprehensive and useful classroom assessments. Now, you've heard Dr. Walker talk about STAR, and STAR is, as he mentioned, that is an assessment that we've been using for the last couple of years, and it's an important assessment. It identifies lots of things, including students that might need additional interventions. It helps us track if students are going up or down, as you saw with the Sankey graph that he showed you. That, as he mentioned, that really K through 2 is our early literacy assessment, and then we have an assessment for grades 3 through 5. What I'd like to also share with you, in addition to STAR assessment, is really the adoption of what we call interim assessments. And interim assessments are different in that they are directly tied to OSAS. They look like OSAS. They have the same tasks as you might expect. And so when we were talking about students being exposed to a once-a-year assessment that happens in May, that's a pretty tough task for our kids if they haven't experienced that task before. And so we've really been working on lifting up interim assessments, and I want to get into that a little bit, and then when I get done with these couple slides, I'm going to show you some snapshots of what that might actually look like for an 8-year-old. But again, with the interim assessments, it's not just about giving a test. It's really a process in which teachers are able to see what is a grade level task. Now, what is really expected of a kid when they're 8 years old in May, and what is that cognitive load? And you'll see what that looks like in a moment. It also gives students an opportunity to practice what the process is, to actually go into the OSAS portal, to know what all the accommodation buttons are, to understand how a split screen works and how you have to read down a series of text and then go back up and then answer some questions and then move on to the next page. It can be daunting for a 51-year-old. I'm sure it's daunting for an 8-year-old as well. So these are some things that we're introducing. We're just starting that work, and that will continue and it'll be refined, and I do believe that will help our system. So next steps, again, we'll continue to use STAR. We like to think of us having an assessment strategy, multiple points, data points for us to make informed decisions. We will be adopting a new curriculum. We will have curriculum-based assessments as well, and that we'll continue to find ways to make sure that our teachers, our students, our families are getting the right feedback to make sure that we know precisely where kids are at and what steps we need to take for their educational journey. Finally, initiative 3 is meaningful professional development. We have monthly professional development for our foundational skills specialists that they've been instrumental in helping our their elementary colleagues with the very high demands of helping kids learn how to read. We are also excited to share, and you know this, that from January 28th through the 30th, we will have an opportunity for hundreds of elementary staff, both licensed and classified, to have an opportunity to be trained on foundational skills training. That training is agnostic to any curriculum. It's just teaching the basic fundamental skills of foundational skills. We are also working with our administrators in our buildings and having a professional learning sequence for them as well that is connected to our work with foundational skills. And we we continue to have feedback loops within my office. We have program associates that are regularly working with our teachers and our principals to bring them along so that we're understanding of what we need to do to help our kids. As I mentioned before, it's not working in office and hoping for the best. It's working in schools and doing walkthroughs and seeing students in classrooms and having conversations with teachers and administrators. It's thinking about significant areas of growth. As we've talked about, I think some people do think that this is a reading test exclusively, and it's not. It's a reading and a writing test. And I think that does get missed. You certainly hear about a reading test. You don't always hear about it being a writing test as well. And so we've really focused on writing instruction. Specifically last year, we lifted up what we called the third grade writing unit, and we had great participation from third grade teachers across the district, and we saw some really important gains. And that specifically addressed an area where writing was really, really low before, and that we saw a bump in that, which helped our overall performance. And we're continuing to do that. We're expanding that work third through fifth grade. And we're always, and I know I'm talking about third grade, but we're thinking about a K-12 system as well. We have interim assessments we've lifted up in middle schools and in high schools. We are really trying to think, how are we lifting our entire system? So while this presentation, what we're talking about tonight, is specific to third grade, this is a K-12 strategy to improve outcomes. So what I'm going to do now is, we talked about how to do this. We were afraid we might mess up with the technology a little bit. So I will admit I had that concern, and I didn't want that to be a distraction. So what we have here is an OSAS question sample. Now these are screenshots. There are screenshots though that you can go to if you just log in OSAS sample test questions. They do have some for the general public to go and take a peek. So these are some screenshots of that. So I know I can't take my microphone over, so I'll stand here. But if I were over there, I would be pointing to the left side of the screen. And on the left side of the screen, what that is a screenshot of a series of directions that I'm going to say an 8-year-old, because we're talking about third graders, that an 8-year-old would have to take a peek at. So they have to do the login. They log into the OSAS portal. They get all that in, and then they get to their performance task, which is what we're looking at here. And the task has a series of directions that actually you would scroll down. So it's more than what you're seeing here, but that gives you an idea. And then as the directions scroll down, on this particular example, it's essentially getting to a task where you have to compare two different pieces of informational text. So it's, the task is understanding the directions, and the task is getting through those two excerpts. One of the tasks before you get into the writing portion is just to analyze, like, where are these statements coming from? Is it coming from this article or this article? And then it might require students from scrolling down to find those answers. Again, on the left is a sample. This is actually all part of the same performance task, is a sample of one of the two articles that a student would have to access. Of course, this is the one that they'll be accessing in May, but it's an example of that. And you can see the text in which students have to navigate through. And then you also see some more instructions for what you need to do once you've read the task, okay? Your assignment, your teacher is creating a bulletin board display in the school library to show what your class has learned. You have to go through that. You have to start organizing your thoughts. And so now we're going to point out some specific things that a student would need to encounter before they've actually started writing, okay? The standard calls for citing more than more than one source, so two or more sources. So using more than one source, develop a main idea about being an astronaut. So they've read they've read the directions, they've read the two articles, and now they're starting to be asked with formulating a multiple paragraph essay, informative essay. So they have to use more than one source. They have to choose the most important information. So they're not using all the information, but like a good writer, they have to be able to pick and pull and find the most important elements that they're going to be writing about to support their main idea. So it's elaborating on evidence is what we call that. It's not just saying what their opinion is, but it's stating something based on the text. They typically, it's not 100%, but well over 70% of prompts that kids would get would be informational text. That typically is the more difficult option. So we're really preparing kids for that more difficult option. The task requires the 8-year-old to have to write multiple paragraphs. They have to have clear organization. They have to support their main idea with details. And in addition to that, they have to cite their sources. And it doesn't say it here, but they have to know how to type. And so, this isn't complaining, by the way, if it sounds like it. This is clearly stating what the challenge is. And it's a challenge that we're going to own, and it's something that we're going to be successful at. It's part of this is identifying explicitly what students must do. It's making it clear in our schools what students must do. It's giving tools like STAR opportunities for us to check along the way what skills students have. It's using interim assessments to expose students to this type of rigorous task. It's ensuring that we have grade level instruction happening. And our kids are going to be able to do this. This is the work. This is what we're doing. And we're going to get there. Again, you see the bullet point list. I don't need to read them. But you see all the different things that are our responsibility to help kids get to. And you know what? When they do, we're going to be better off. So I'm going to hand it back over to Dr. Walker.
Thank you very much, and we welcome any questions you have.
What type of training are we giving our parents to help support their students with this?
Yeah. You want to start?
I can start with, we had the incredible opportunity to have conferences last week. And so every parent received a report that clearly gave them information about how their student is doing in reading and math and all the other things that we measure in school. And then they had an opportunity to talk to the teacher about the very short-term and long-term goals that will help students get to more opportunities to make progress in reading. Additionally, some schools have family literacy opportunities for parents to come in and engage in some practices that will help students make progress at home. We connect them with community resources to take books home and then do some reading with their children. And teachers just also do what they do best, and that is to make some phone calls during the week or any time that they feel like they need that stronger partnership with parents.
How are we teaching typing? How are we teaching typing?
I got a good answer for that one. Last year, our department offered to pay for a program called Typing Agent. Not all schools chose to use that. Some schools had a different one. We saw this year that more schools opted in to that. So students, it depends on the school, but we do have that software program to help kids learn how to type. It is a high priority for us.
I'll be buying that for my grandchild for Christmas.
I'll give you a deal.
Are we not using the cardboard covers for the keyboard and stuff?
No, we've really progressed. Yeah.
Director Parker?
Is there going to be accommodations for like children, the special education children, to where they can have somebody assist them and monitor and everything?
The accommodations for interim assessments are exactly the same as the
They
accommodations.
would
for
follow
legal
with their
assessment.
IEPs?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Guzman Ortiz?
Thank you so much for the information, and I will admit I failed at sending in questions. So we're just gonna go off the cuff here, but starting with the first slide where we show our performance growth targets, Assistant Superintendent Cobb, you named, right? We have a target of 30%, and that is what we have in writing and what we've written in collaboration with ODE and whatnot. But I just really want to emphasize that as a board, when we had a conversation about our performance targets, we wanted 100%, right? And so I think just want to emphasize that absolutely our goal here for across the board is 100% for every single student to be at and above grade level. The questions I had were, looking at the progress, and I see that I heard Superintendent Cobb around the kind of the decline on some of our student populations. I think the Asian one is particularly significant, and then I see the list of key data highlights in some schools, and my question is, like, what do we know is leading to great progress? Is it staffing? Is it leadership? Is it curriculum? Is it unique initiatives? And I'm sure it's a combination of. I'd love to hear a couple examples of what you have found is working, and how do we spread that, right? When we have 17 schools meet or exceed performance targets, that's about a quarter of our schools, and we're making progress, and yet I'd say that's not enough. So that's the question. What are we doing? What are we finding?
I had the opportunity, I'm not going to call out who the principal is, but I'd like to. But I had the opportunity to listen to a principal earlier this week, yesterday, talk about what their particular strategy was, and they're on this list. And it was a lot of really good practical things. They talked about, they embraced the third grade writing project, so they really embraced the writing element of the curriculum. They talked about with the staff about this is what we need to do to really. Some of it was just psychological, to be honest with you, but just like this is how we prepare for STAR. This is how we prepare for OSAS. This is how we prepare for what an interim looks like. They did a great idea of OSAS does not test kinder first and second, but come test time, they had a second grade class pair with a third grade class, and they had a kinder class pair with a third grade class or fourth grade class. And so just kind of like creating this climate, where they're cheerleaders and they're excited about it. I mean, I think that's part of it as well, in addition to obviously all the heavy lifting of making sure we're having kids teach or be exposed to grade level instruction. But I think it's an all-encompassing piece. And Chair Richardson asked, what do parents know, or how are they being trained? I think that is part of this as well. This is a we thing as a community, and principals have a role, teachers have a role, we all collectively have a role, and so do our families. And I think that awareness and excitement makes a difference, in addition to all the other things we've talked about.
Well, the other thing I was just going to emphasize with that is we have put we're giving our community an incredible gift in the dual language programs that we have here. And what the language allocation looks like for a student who starts in kindergarten is 90-10, meaning that I'm receiving 90% of my day in Spanish and 10% in English. And that changes throughout the trajectory of their career. By the time they've hit third grade, they're at 60-40 Spanish to English. And the key thing here is that we're giving kids a test in English only, not in Spanish. This is the state assessment, and it is only measuring a student's proficiency in a language. And in this school district, we have made it a point to value biliteracy and bilingualism and lift that up for our community. So I could not agree more with the sentiment of raising the academic achievement, and I would implore us to measure adequately the degree to which we are doing that in a partner language as well.
A couple of things I want to add is that schools also develop their own targets. When they do their strategic planning, these 29% is our district target that we work through a process with ODE. But when schools are doing their own strategic planning, we have schools that are at 45% performance. We have schools that are at 60% performance. So they develop their own internal targets that are attainable and still ambitious. So I wanted to point that out, and the level directors guide them through that. And then a strategy I wanted to highlight that it's incredibly powerful and that helps a school move the dial and move the outcome is also that vertical alignment that needs to exist within the staff, so the pre-K teacher knows exactly what are those foundational skills that they need to work with the students on, so they send them ready to kinder, and then the kinder teachers work on what they need to do. And so when you have that clear alignment within your school system, students grow, and the responsibility of third, fourth, fifth grade achievement is shared and owned by everyone in the school. That is a characteristic that I know is present in the schools that you have in front of you, and also in those other 17 that made progress. And then lastly, I wanted to say, we are working really hard. You just heard the incredible work that the two leaders that are here are supporting with. There is a sense of urgency, not only coming from us, but also principals and teachers. We all know that we need to have third graders reading in English or Spanish proficiently, so they can access knowledge and be able to learn in the way that they need to. They may not show up as proficient yet in third, fourth, and fifth grade, but we also know that our data has shown that once they start hitting those middle school years, they are going to outperform students that are learning in just one language for our dual language students.
Director Hudson.
Thank you so much. So I have many questions. One first, thank you for the presentation, you two. I mean, one of my favorite topics is always curriculum, as that's no secret to many. But that was the best yet, as far as depth and transparency. So showing that example was wonderful, because that's one of the main things I always hear from the community is they want to see, to understand what exactly, in my parental or family layman's terms, are my kiddos learning, testing on, looking at in school. So for you to choose to incorporate that, I just wanted to thank you. As in addition to the method, describing multiple times the method of which you're following this and tracking this, as in stepping foot in the classroom, not only just watching, seeing, checking with staff and how they're doing with their development, but also talking with the students. I appreciated that you incorporated that, and that you continue to. That's wonderful, exciting. That's the whole scope now. We're not just talking about data points up here, but we always wonder, how does this actually affect and translate into the classroom? So thank you. Two things. One is the question back on, I think it was about the 6th page. We talked about the urgent intervention, watch, and intervention. So I was wondering if it would be possible to go into depth a little further on what exactly that means and what that translates to. So when a student is on watch, what kind of tools does that mean that the teacher has to implement? Is that across the board or per school? And the same with intervention, and I would really like to hear about urgent intervention. And then if you could incorporate timelines, I don't know if that means watch means this, we have these tools, and say we have a timeline of this many months or year, and our check-in points are, once a month or once a week, something like that. Does that make sense, that first question?
Yes, and I'm happy to talk a little bit more deeply about that. Let me know if I need to go deeper or how I handle it. The urgent intervention, on watch, and at or above categories that are listed in both the STAR reading computer adaptive test and the early literacy adaptive tests are correlated to tell a teacher the degree to which a student needs help in a particular area. Now, these tests they catch everything. They're catching a variety of skills, and so what a teacher has to do at that point is understand the skill that a student specifically needs help with. So we'll dive into the early literacy portion of that, and that would show up in what's called the CBMs. And the CBMs give a teacher a better understanding of a targeted skill-specific activity related to early literacy development that a teacher could key into to help support that student. The CBMs are different across kinder, first, and second grade because, as you can imagine, once you learn your letter sounds, we don't need to test you again on your letter sounds. We know that you have your letter sounds, and so we're not going to continue to ask you to do your letter sounds over and over and over again. And so the skills build on each other over time. And once a teacher has recognized a specific skill that a student needs help with, there are lots of possible avenues depending on the category and the level of need that's present for that student. So we'll dive into a student who is in need of urgent intervention, let's say. And the skill might be phoneme segmentation. And so that teacher would recognize that that student likely has lots of lagging skills, but the most important thing that a student can develop early on is how to segment the phonemes into word sounds. And so that teacher would, along with the foundational skills specialists and the rest of the school, work at identifying a particular intervention curriculum that matches to that skill. We have a variety of intervention curriculums that are skill specific and targeted to particular areas. And so that teacher, along with the foundational skills specialist and the school team, would identify that specific skill as a target area for intervention groups with that student, and then they would run an intervention cycle. And throughout that cycle, they're progress monitoring progress. So they're checking intermittently to ensure that the student is making adequate progress toward the defined goal. Because what we know is that if a student is not making progress, perhaps it's not the right intervention. Perhaps we need to go back and adjust the frequency, duration, or intensity of the intervention. And so that is what a teacher might do for an urgent intervention student. The other key element here, I'll bump up one or two and go to the on-watch category. For a teacher who recognizes that one of their students is on watch, they may utilize what's known as a small group inside of their general core literacy instruction in their classroom. It is a feature of the literacy block, and they would pull that student for additional support during that time into a small group. And depending on the level of need of the specific student and the skill would determine the frequency and the amount of time that that student would see that teacher for that particular support for that skill. Teachers just concluded their very first, what's called a core review meeting, where they identified all of the students in their classroom and where they are on the continuum and the kinds of supports that they're going to need. That happens 3 times a year during these assessments, fall, winter, and spring. And teachers identify the level of support needed for those particular students after those benchmark windows. Is that helpful?
Thank you, that was wonderful. When you mentioned the kind of check-in points at the end, I know we discussed core, fall, winter, spring, but then it sounded like, say, any one of those actually, but urgent intervention, when it creates a suggestion, the STAR system, to an instructor, a teacher, on what particular projects or testings they can provide to that student to try to get them to catch up in the quickest manner. However, it sounded like there was a review time that said, well, maybe this one's not working the best, let's try something else. Is that process, is that what happens during fall, winter, spring, or does it happen more often? Is it like after maybe a week or two, the teacher goes back and can see if that first one is making enough improvements to stick with that method or not?
Yes, that's a very astute of you to call out there. And so that is, we would not run, it happens in between the benchmark windows. And it happens with more frequency to ensure that the intervention that is being applied or the skill that is being worked on is actually showing improvement. And so we wouldn't wait until the next benchmark window, which is, in January for us, to tell us whether or not what we've been doing this whole time has been working or not working. We would check more frequently, and that's a progress monitoring process that occurs, and it depends on the skill and the amount of time and duration that is selected for that.
Thank you so much. I will share just my scope of being in the elementary classrooms. That this particularly is good news to the community. It should be as well, because this isn't a technique, that check-in point, that I saw across the board prior. So therefore, you're thinking, oh, your kiddo's going to get on track. We gave the projection back check-in time the end of the year, and now they're another year behind because we didn't notice that this tactic wasn't working. So thank you. Chair Richardson, is it okay if I go to my second question? It's much quicker. I don't know.
Okay, I'll give you 2 minutes.
Thanks, Bless. So just our community partners in this effort, I mean, do we have any community partners helping us with this effort to boost the reading to third grade?
Yes, I think, well, we have a variety of, go ahead. Okay. We have a variety of partners. We always want volunteers in our schools to help us in a variety of different ways. But I am thinking most specifically about particular partnerships that schools have and after-school tutoring programs that schools are developing with instructional assistants who are trained in these intervention materials, and how schools are leveraging resources right now to create additional blocks of support for those students. I know we have a lot of partnerships, and I'm sure Deputy Superintendent Cobb can elaborate more deeply.
I'm hoping she does. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We're excited about a newer partnership with Reading Results in one of our schools, and we are trying to grow, first explore how that partnership is going to work, but they will basically bring in readers into schools that are highly trained and will help us develop the trajectory of our students as readers. We also work with SMART program. Lots of faith-based organizations that come into schools. We have a partnership actually with Kids Hope, and they come to our schools in large groups during the literacy blocks, and they help us, again, supporting teachers with whatever they are instructed to do with specific small groups of students. And then we have some local partnerships. We're restarting again our partnership with the Coalition for Equality. They do family literacy program for our students that are learning English and Spanish. And so this has been a partnership that we've had for years, and we continue to explore and develop.
Thank you. And those are available to every elementary, is that right?
I don't know that they have the capacity to be in every single elementary, but we're trying to gather more and more volunteers to have access to all schools.
Okay, so it sounds like we're also accepting maybe financial support from community partners as well that could help that?
Mostly volunteers, yes, mostly volunteers.
Director Harnish.
Thank you both so much for your in-depth presentation. I was very excited about tonight's presentation, and really want to commend the district for its intentionality. When I think about the curriculum adoption, what I really value and treasure is that we're not waiting for that to happen. We're starting now, so basically a year in advance. And I think the taking, using our time in January to really build that foundation, I think is absolutely critical. And I really hope that that is received really well by staff and by principals and the community at large, because that's an important piece. That it's really change management, I think, at its best. And I also really appreciate the real key strategies. And I do have a question that I'll get to, but before I do that, I also really want to say I think there's been some language, a little bit of nod to the pre-K to 5, and but it's also K to 5. And I would just really encourage us as a district to really include our pre-K kiddos in this. We have a very large pre-K program here at the district, and not to mention our kids are getting ready in a variety of spaces and are showing up at that kindergarten space. And as a community, it's our job to help ensure that our kids are ready for that kindergarten transition. So I would just encourage the district to do even more to really call that out, which I think is a very first step. But then it also, it attaches the community to this work, which I think is very important. And I am excited to hear about some of the pieces, and particularly with the coalition getting started back up. And I think that's great. And I happen to know of a few other things that are happening in the early childhood space that is really intended to really set kids up for success. So I hope that those are counted in that. And I'm also really curious about the, and you maybe said it and I didn't miss it, I really appreciate having the schools that have the 10, double-digit improvements, but there are also 23 other schools that aren't highlighted here, which those are important as well. And so if you maybe could say a little bit about some of the strategies that are going towards those schools over and above sort of what we've already called out in some of the blanket strategies, but how are we really going to wrap around those schools?
Dr. Walker and I and Olga and all the level directors, a number of us have had an opportunity to listen to all of our principals recently and talk about what their strategies are for improving their school based on the data that they have. And again, I'm not going to call it a specific principal, but you know what? I really actually have one in mind that did just an outstanding job. That the school has not performed well historically. The level of detail and comprehensive planning that they have that is tied to all the things that we've been talking about today gives all of us great hope that they're going to turn the corner. And there's a lot of schools like that, but there's one in particular that I'm thinking of that has huge gains to be made. But we talk about consistency and coherence. You might have heard that in other presentations throughout this year. It's a theme that we're really trying to stress as an organization. And so there should be some consistency and coherence in terms of how our building leaders are tackling this problem. And from what I'm seeing, great improvement in that area. So yes, we're highlighting 10 schools that had double-digit gains. Can't wait to be here next year to talk about other schools that are doing the same thing.
If I can add a couple points to that, thank you for pointing out the pre-K work that needs to happen. We are actually including our pre-K staff, all of the pre-K staff, into our January professional development, because we know we have to start earlier than kindergarten. And we're hoping to also gather some, through some communication strategy, the community as a whole, so that parents know what they can do, neighbors know what they can do to continue supporting our literacy goals. And then something else that we have worked on that is a systemic shift is making sure that the foundational skills teachers that are in every single one of our 42 elementary schools are highly skilled to be the expert on reading at their school. So the curriculum department last year created a scope and sequence for learning for the foundational skills teachers, and we are focusing on continuing building their capacity to be the experts within their school. And so that will support the growth of those other schools that we didn't add today.
Director Fuller?
Hi. I want to also thank you too for being here and for your presentation. I'm just now beginning my journey on the board, so all of this is somewhat new, and I appreciate you presenting the information in a way that even people who haven't heard last year's report can still follow along. One thing I wanted to go back a little bit into what we were talking about, the culture that the principals and that the staff at the school create for this to work. And I've seen it in action, like Chrissy, I'm in elementary classrooms a lot as well. And just the, all throughout the day, there's teachers coming to pick up certain students for interventions and come back. And sometimes that happens in the room, sometimes it happens outside. And the relationship that those teachers are forming with those students is absolutely crucial in the success of it. And they're doing a fantastic job. I've experienced this with one of my own children going through elementary school. And going back to the culture and the teacher, we had a testing week. It was built up. It was, kids got excited about it. Kids got enthused. It wasn't presented in a way of, you've got to do great on this test. It was like, this is your time to shine. And I really appreciated that about it. The teachers did simple things that, like sending home a blank sheet of note cards to fill out. I think there was 5, one for each day of the week, to encourage the kids. So it was really fun sitting down with my coffee in the morning and filling out those sheets for all the students in the class. It was really fun, and I know that the students liked it. So there's just so, this work is complicated, this work is layered, this work is technical, it's scientific, but it's also human. And I really appreciate the teachers and the district in forming it in that way for the kids so that they appreciate it and look forward to it and want to do well. It's really fun to watch that happen. Second thing is, I know there was recently an article published in the Salem Reporter of all the different ways that our community can volunteer and reach out and help students and these reading scores. Amazing. I urge the community to look up that article, look at the different ways, find a way that you think might work for you, and try something new. Challenge yourself to give back to the community in a way maybe you haven't before. Really start by going to the district and registering as a volunteer so you can get your background check done, because that takes weeks. So I have the expectation that people get really excited about this and then hit the wall of the background check. So expect it. It's not a wall, it's just a process. It's a step you have to take. So be ready for that and know it's there. But again, thank you.
Thank you.
Director Parker?
Great presentation, thank you. My question is, when the development starts in January, when will the actual testing start for the students? Will it start in the spring, or will it start again in the fall?
For which is for STAR or for interim?
For the new curriculum. When's the first testing going to be done for after the teachers aren't you adopting it in January?
Oh, I understand. Yeah,
Yes.
sorry, I wasn't tracking. Yeah, so when will the teachers provide input? When will the final committee meet to?
Yeah.
That's what you're asking?
When will the students actually be taking the first testing from this new curriculum?
Okay, so okay, I think I understand your question, but if I'm not tracking, then correct me. I think I heard you say, when are students going to be tested with a new curriculum?
Yeah, with the new curriculum
Okay.
you're presenting, yes.
So the timeline for the new curriculum, if everything goes as planned, right, is that we'll finish with our second, the pilot process will end in February. The final committee will meet. They'll make a recommendation to me. I will come to the board for approval. At that point, if it's approved, then we order all the stuff and things, which is pretty significant for elementary literacy.
Okay.
And that we would be using that curriculum in the fall of next
fall
year.
next year,
Yes.
okay.
Is that it? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yes, it does. And then my next question is, which, if all goes well and it is presented and it goes through next fall, do you perceive maybe some of these scores maybe going down a little bit in the first year, getting all the bugs and everything dealt with? Do you foresee maybe actually going down? I mean, I don't want to be a downer here,
Right.
but do we see kind of maybe the first year, maybe us going down a little bit in our percentages?
You're talking about an implementation dip, which is a thing, right? When
Yes,
you have
yeah.
new materials and sometimes just, we call it sometimes like the mechanical phase of the
Right.
curriculum where you're not quite sure how it all fits together and you're using curriculum maps for the first time and that can be a little bit clunky. It's possible, but I'm a glass is half full guy, and I think that, what we're talking about in terms of the new curriculum is a huge component to ensure that we have grade level instruction, and it's a component of an overall strategy that we have. So we'll see, but I'm hopeful that all the things that we're doing, we're not going to see that implementation dip.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This will be our last question. Director Hudson?
Thank you so much. So there was a dip last year, I think slightly it looked like in the chart. So I was hoping and thinking, well, maybe that was because the implementation of STAR, we had that little dip. So hopefully that will keep our trajectory going up more and less of a dip when we implement the curriculum, because we don't have STAR and the curriculum that we're trying to embed and expecting the staff to. That's my thought and hope anyway. I don't know if it helps your hopes, Jennifer. But my question really quick, I had heard that we did have financial support offer from partners, and so I was wondering what happened with that. So I was thinking, ooh, that could help accelerate the communication with the families and resources with books and training them to help the students. Are you able, Olga, to share anything about that, or anyone else that might know?
Yes, I can. We did have a wonderful offer from community partners, and we were also at the same time, we also received information from the state about a grant that we could access, and so we're using those funds that are coming in to do the training in January, and not only do the training, but also continue with some coaching, because we know that a training that is done one time is really not effective. You have to train and then do a lot of follow-up coaching sessions. And so we're able to use the state grant to beef up those efforts.
Is that coaching, sorry, just for staff, or is that for the family thing that you were talking about earlier as well?
It's for everything about literacy, everything around literacy, staff, coaching, and then using some title funds for family literacy efforts.
Okay, so just the title schools will have that. Got it. Okay, thank you.
I have a request. That screenshot that's up, I want that to come to my inbox. And I think it should go out to all of our third grade parents so that they know what to expect and how to help their kids. I've been an educator for a long time, and I was just shocked at some of the things that were presented to us tonight. So we want to make sure we prepare our students and our families for what's coming. Did you have your hand up?
Well, I was just going to echo that and say, as a board member, at least, if you haven't done the sample OSAS, do it. It's eye-opening, so.
I just can't thank you enough for this beautiful presentation, all of this wonderful information. I'm looking forward to great things. And I just want to say, as a former Title I principal, we make improvements, maybe not at the rate that you see in some of the other schools, but there are other things that we're dealing with. And when we can close those gaps and give our parents and students the support they need, then we accelerate our learning. So I feel that all of our schools will be at that point at some time, because I know they can do it.
They can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
We're going to take a 5-minute break. We'll be back at 7:20. I'd like to introduce Chief Operating Officer Odenthal and Director Baldridge to present our final item on tonight's agenda.
Good evening, Chair Richardson, Directors, Student Advisor McMahon, and Deputy Superintendent Cobb. Thank you for the time tonight with you to discuss our continued work to improve safety of our schools, the work of our district, of our team, and of the district as a whole as well. If we could go to the next slide. This is, tonight we're going to talk about Activity 1 under our Climbing Together goals as well, which is Safe Schools for All. And this activity is around looking at our student-caused injuries, the data, looking at trends, and the work to predict and prevent harm as well. And while we don't have anything as super cool as a Sankey graph that I saw for the first time tonight, we have some good data to share and stories to tell about what we're seeing in the data and our trends that our team is doing in the work across the district. Before I turn it over to Director Baldridge to talk through that data and those pieces, I wanted to take a moment and just acknowledge the recent immigration enforcement activities we've seen across the district, across our area, and the impact that it's having on our families and our students in the district. We want our students, our families to know that our schools are safe, right? Our staff is well-trained and prepared to deal with law enforcement or immigration officials that are coming onto our campuses, onto our property. We have those protocols that we're standing before, and we've reinforced them with the staff so that we're ready to be there with those clear protocols again and prioritize the safety of our students and also comply with law as well. Those protocols that we have are not limited to those protocols are there and they include, but they're not limited to verifying official credentials of police or law enforcement that would come onto our campuses. It's notifying the administrators in the building and up to the district and so that we can vet those requests and what that information they're looking for is as well. And then also it's our team within safety, risk, and management and the legal team engaging as well and being ready to get out to the site and assist at the school as well. We want to remind also our parents out there that as a district, we do not collect or share immigration status information, and we're committed to protecting the rights of all of our students and our families. Of course, this work is not just about that impact that it has on our campuses. If we have that, we've been fortunate not to have the immigration on our campuses, and we don't suspect that would be rare. We believe that we will see that activity. While we're prepared for that, we also know the impact goes beyond just what happens on our property. And as a district, we're committed to supporting the families if they are dealing with this issue. And as we've done this last week, supporting families and our students, we want them back in our schools and we want them to feel safe and welcome and respected on our property. So thank you for the time with that. And that I'm going to turn it over to Chris, and he can perhaps, if he wants to add anything on this subject, but also to dig into the data on our Climbing Together goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Chair, Directors, Student Advisor, and Deputy Superintendent. Thank you for your time. I don't have anything additional to add. I think Paul covered that very well. Before I get diving into our student-caused injuries, I'm overwhelmed to thank our educators. All of those that are in the schools. Some of our educators face some very difficult situations. Some of those, sometimes they're injured while performing their duties. And it is amazing. There's not a week that I don't get called in my office from our schools where they're like, Chris, how do we help this kid? What do we do? And our schools represent our #1 core value, which is keeping students at the center. They are always reflective of that value, and I'm super thankful to them. I say that because in our presentation, I'm going to be a bit clinical around data, and I don't want that to be offensive to anybody, but we're going to talk about data and folks getting injured, and some of it's going to be somewhat impersonable. But I do want to dive into the steps of how we're going to get personal, how we're starting to address this within the district and working with all of our partners to making sure that our staff, our students are safe within inside of our schools. So before we dive into the data, I want to take a look at some of our data from school year 24-25. Specifically, it's our workers' compensation data. So I'm going to kind of turn my mic here so I can address this. We're going to talk about first workers' compensation claims. So a workers' compensation claim is when a person has been injured and the district is actually incurring a cost as a result of that. So it could be a medical bill, it could be time lost, they're off of work, it could be a number of things, but the district is incurring a cost as a result of that injury. So if you look at school year 24-25, we see that we had a total of 343 claims opened, and of those, 183 were student cause claims. So total payments was, it exceeded $1 million, about 1.2 million, and about 6,890 days of estimated work loss as a result of these injuries. So I don't want to just show these numbers to you and say this is what the district lost, because there's much more impact here, right? There's impact to our staff were injured. There's impact to the students, something is going on there where they're not being successful, and it's disruptive to our school environments. If we could go to the next slide, please. So these numbers compare our last 2 school years. So if we look at student cause injuries, we see 1,357 in school year 23-24. And in school year 24-25, we see 1,479. But our compensable injuries went from 215 to 192. What we're taking from this data and what it suggests to us is that while incidences are up, our response systems, and I'll talk about those here in just a minute, may be improving and leading to fewer claims and requiring compensation. Or to put it another way, our injuries aren't as severe. It wouldn't go, this is a very small trend down, and what it shows us is we have a lot of work left in front of us. So if we can go to the next slide. I'm going to stay very specifically inside of the safety and risk management world, but I have to explain that there are so many of us involved in this project, and really my friends in MTSS, so Multi-Tiered Systems of Support, Chris Moore, he's my good partner, and we love it because we are the polar opposite of each other. And it is amazing to work with him. And then Scott Drew and his team in student services, we have developed a 3-way partnership. So one, we're feeding them with data and working on systems while they adjust systems and respond into schools and really start to address some of this behavior. One of the things that we've done inside of safety and risk management is in 2022, we adopted a very robust risk management software called Origami Risk. So we made it a district investment in this. And what it did is it took us out of, I think we were in SharePoint prior to that, which SharePoint's a great program. I don't want to be discouraging, but it's not a risk management software. This software really started to show us our data and point us towards our trends and where we're at and where we're seeing issues at. And it allows us to dive into detail. So with that, as we pioneered that project, we started to see what that system can do for us, and they're currently customizing our program for us. And we're actually currently developing the system to where it will actually take the data, look at it, assign it a risk score based on what the injury that has occurred, and then it's actually going to live alert into different systems based on the acuity of injury that's occurred. So if it's an extreme injury, it's going to hit multiple systems. It'll hit MTSS, special education, it'll hit the level director's office, it can hit the school itself, and we can start getting things like our tier 3 systems responding into it immediately when we start to see these come up. We're going to monitor data that's not only just injury, but we're looking across systems. So we're going to be monitoring our restraint and seclusion data. We believe that our restraint and seclusion data is some of the data that points to our earliest forms of, or earliest causes of injury. If we're starting to see a lot of restraint seclusions in a space, we know that injury is coming next. And so we want to be really good as the safety and risk management partner in being early and identifying so that we can start to bring our risk down and our injuries down, and which if our injuries go down, our classrooms become even more successful because they're not being disrupted. In addition to that, we as a district, we brought on a safety officer specifically assigned to special education. As far as I know, I don't know of any other district, at least in our area, that has any type of person or that's in a position like this. He has a unique set of skills. He comes from an educational background. He has the ability to not only go in and counsel and provide an educational lens into the space, but then he's also evaluating the spaces to make sure that they are in an environment where the staff can be successful and the student can be successful. He went throughout all of our special education spaces throughout the summer and last year. We now have a roadmap of everything that we have within our special education spaces. When I talk about that, I talk about equipment, desks, shelving, what do they have, what do our de-escalation spaces look like, all of these different things. And now we're working with our special education environments and our multi-tiered systems of support of developing a blueprint of what our special education spaces can look like so that our educators can be successful and those kids are proud about the spaces that they're moving into. And again, trying to drive our risk and our injury down in those spaces. So these are just two of the systems that we're working on. There's so much more, but I'm going to stay grounded in these two today. So let's look at the first month of school. If you head over to the next slide. So if you look at 2024, in the first month of school through September, we had 112 incidents of student-caused injury. In 2025, we have 92. So it's a 10% reduction. I'll take it. And while it's early, it's a positive trend, right? If this keeps going down, this is where we want to be. But we're going to be cautious. We're going to continue monitoring, and we're continue to work with our partners. We work closely with our partners at SKIA and ASK-ESP as well, in addition to multiple other departments within the district, so that we can all continue bringing this problem down in the right direction. So kind of in summary, what I'm telling you is we see both challenges and signs of progress as we're moving, but we do believe our data-driven approach combined with environmental improvements and staff support is helping us move towards safer schools for all. So Paul, turn it back over to you with that.
Thanks, Chris. Just as Chris said, we're seeing this progress. That first month of school is very critical as well, so this is great to see. But we have more data to collect and more improvement to make in this area, and we'll continue to improve and grow in this as well. And I'd just like to add my thank you as Chris, to echo Chris's thank you to all the staff that are involved in this. This is multiple departments across the school district. This is the principals, the staff at the schools contributing to making this improvement in safety. But I'd also like to just say thank Chris for his leadership in this. He does a tremendous job in leading our safety and risk team and interfacing across the district with passion and really a drive for this as well. So thank you, Chris. And Chair Richardson, we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, Jody.
I was wondering if you know, like, what school group, like elementary, middle, high school, like, has the most student-caused injuries?
It's our, training-wise, typically it's our developmental kinder 2 classrooms,
Okay.
Where we see the highest rate of injury come out of, at least the last time I looked at it, unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Like, can I?
Yes.
Okay. I was also wondering if you knew anything about, like, the bullying numbers for last year, because I was wondering if, like, that also, like, coincided with student injuries, because I know, like, cases of bullying and, like, yeah, that can cause, like, alterations between students, so I was wondering.
Yeah, good questions. I don't have the bullying numbers for the district. We could certainly obtain those. However, we're talking about 2 kind of different injuries. This really actually pertains to a staff member becoming injured as a result of a student's actions. We do track some of that other data, but I don't have it in front of me currently.
Okay, thank you.
Director Parker?
What's the percentage of the teachers, are they all trained with some kind of, with knowing restraints? Do they come in with knowing kind of restraints, or is there only a certain amount of teachers?
Okay, so last year we developed the training academy. I believe some of you are aware of this program. That's the basis. That has been one of our greatest successes. What we found when we analyzed injuries was what you're pointing out, is that a lot of times our staff didn't have the tools to be successful in the environment, especially when it came to proactively like restraint and seclusion and things like that. And even more so in the de-escalation space before we got to restraint and seclusion. So I'm super thankful, Superintendent Castaneda and Deputy Superintendent Cobb. They let us create a training academy where we're taking all of our new employees, and we now, I believe it went out to the district just last week, we have a, what would you call it, like a la carte menu of trainings that's being offered by the trainers at the training academy. Again, to my knowledge, I think we're breaking ground here. We're actually bringing our new employees in. We have them for, I believe it's almost 2 weeks before they see a space where they're obtaining courses like MANT, their MANT certification. There's some UKERU classes that are offered, self-care, first aid, things like that, de-escalation training, and that's all being offered to them before they even set foot into the classroom. Not only have we seen greater successes inside of our classrooms as a result of this program, but we're actually seeing our classified staff who are actually injured the most in these spaces, they're staying. They're actually staying here within the district. And please don't quote me to this, I want to say that our last percentage that we saw, we were somewhere up in like the 80 or 90% of retention rate, whereas we were down in like the 70s before we implemented the training academy. It's been a great tool.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Director Fuller?
Yeah, thank you. So I've heard the words restraint and isolation quite a bit through this presentation. And so just so people who might be listening, and partly myself as well,
Sure.
I don't believe that that's like just a tool you whip out in any situation. I think it's probably a really specialized, like almost a last resort kind of tool. Can you explain to us a little bit more about what isolation and restraint means, and maybe give us a scenario of when that might be used so people don't think that we just use it all the time?
Great question. Let me start with seclusion first. So there are only 2 sites currently with state certified seclusion spaces. So a seclusion space is actually a space where a student goes in, the student is placed into where they can calm themselves. They're watched by a staff member. It's a very specialized space. It has certification requirements that we haven't. You have to have specialized training in that. There are only 2 spaces within the district, and they're in specialized programs. They're not inside of our schools. In our schools, we use de-escalation spaces, which require we always have a staff member inside the space with the student. We do utilize that a lot when a student is experiencing an issue where they're not being safe inside of an educational space. Staff will assist them to where they need to go, and they'll utilize that de-escalation space, but there's always a staff member inside with them, talking with them and having conversations while they come down. Seclusion or restraint is directed by the state. There are specialized programs that we can adopt through the district, and you have to be trained in order to do things like restraint. But what I don't want to give anybody the false sense of is like it's a headlock or anything that would be super dangerous to a kid. It is very much so escorting with the arm, heading over into a space when they're doing something to where they're being unsafe. An example, I was actually at a school today where I saw a restraint happen, and that was a student in a special education class was running towards he had ran out of the school. He was running towards a very dangerous road. The staff members were chasing on foot, got him. The educator went into an arm restraint, which is an escort, and they talked to him all the way back to school, and he came back to school, and they brought him back into the school. So not things that we're looking to injure anybody. Unfortunately, for us, when we do engage with restraint, which is why we want them to be the last ditch effort for our staff, is our staff have the high probability of being injured during a restraint.
So I'm understanding that restraint means a situation where a staff is likely to be injured, right?
Correct.
And that restraint doesn't necessarily mean like you said, a headlock.
Correct.
Or a sleeper hold. It just means guiding, physically guiding.
Yes, it can be.
With communication.
It can be, and I would encourage folks, if you have real questions around restraint, one, we would want to bring our special education department or Chris Moore back into here so they can explain it to you very well. You can go out and look at systems like MANT, it's M-A-N-D-T. You can look at UKERU, which is U-K-E-R-U. There's multiple different versions and forms that we teach our staff of how to keep themselves safe and kids safe when kids are engaging in activities that are unsafe for them.
Okay, so I'm glad I asked this question because when I first heard the words isolation and restraint, I was thinking something much different than what I'm thinking now. So isolation simply means some time out with a teacher, right? Kind of broadly speaking. It's not they're isolated from everyone else. And restraint is not, it's an interactive, it's a guiding, it's physical movement more so than.
Yes, and
Okay.
did I use the term isolation? Okay.
No, seclusion, thank you.
Seclusion,
That was my fault.
okay.
My bad, sorry.
I
was like, why is he looking at me like that?
I don't think I said that. Oh,
No.
hope I didn't.
Okay, thank you so much for clearing that
You're
up
welcome.
for me.
You're welcome.
Director Ortiz?
Oh, I was just going to jump in and say ODE has guidance for preventing restraint and seclusion in Oregon's public education programs, and I think it would be helpful for all of us to familiarize ourselves with it, and it breaks down what those are and in what situations.
I would actually invite the directors I could completely make it happen. If you wanted to be a part of our training academy, we could absolutely host you at our training academy. And it would be a wonderful experience for you guys to come and sit with some newer educators and be a part of that. And it is eye-opening what you'll learn.
I would love that.
Great.
Thank you. Director Parker?
I was just gonna say that I'm actually OAS trained, OASO, which is a little more than the MAT training, but it's a guiding. They don't put any pressure under their joints or on their bones or anything. It's just a guiding, so there's no physical harm to the child. It's just a way to get the child out of the classroom, out of the setting, so to prevent injuries. It's no harm to the child.
Thank you.
Yep.
I didn't think we would harm our students. But
No, I mean, that's what they do to try and prevent.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Thank you for helping me
Yep.
understand that.
Director Ortiz?
Thank you. You mentioned, was it origami?
Yes.
You just got me really excited when you were talking about this data system. So to just circle back to that, is it in function, or I heard you say we're still developing or kind of informing what the system looks like?
In function.
It is
in full function. And
Okay.
so what we figured out now is that we have all of this great data, and we're trying to develop a process now currently with the company of how do we take the data that we do, examine that risk, and get it to our schools and the departments that need to see it immediately. Because one of the things we hear from schools is it takes so much work to get help into the schools. And our Scott Drew and his team and Chris Moore and his team have been breaking those barriers down, and we want to help them by having the data live and ready to go and coming directly into them. And so they will be able to see in real time of where our hotspots at. There will be a heat map. I'm super excited about it, and we're in the creation process with them now. Version 1 of it hopefully will be live in about November.
That's wonderful. And I just gotta say, I know you said, you would talk about this very, I don't know what term you use, but I guess I'm thinking like medically, right, of just rigid. And I also want to acknowledge that I know how much you collaborate with the other teams and recognize that there is an intersection of that these things happen because there's an intersection between students' experiences, behavior, mental, and what they're coming to school that they're bringing from home. So thank you so much for the collaboration, because it really helps us ensure that we have safe schools and that we are providing and supporting that sense of belonging for our little ones. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to thank you both for all of this wealth of information and making sure that our schools are safe. We look forward to the opportunity maybe to have some further training with some of your teams. And we just really, really appreciate all that you do. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
It is currently 7:46. This meeting is adjourned.